There you go, Eric. Good evening. I'm calling to order this meeting of the Arlington Select Board on Monday, November 3rd, 2025, which is being recorded on and broadcasted on ACMi. I am the chair, Diane Mahan, and joining me are
John Hurd.
Eric Helmuth.
Jane Morgan.
Steve DeCourcy.
James Sweeney, Town Manager.
Michael Cunningham, Town Council.
Ashley Marr, Board Administrator.
and welcome to our newest member, Mrs. Morgan.
Thank
here
you.
Tonight. And as a result of that, that brings us to our first order of business, which is organizational meeting for the purpose of electing a new vice chair. I will now open the meeting for nominations. Mr. DeCourcy,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to nominate Mr. Hurd for Vice Chair.
is there a second? Mr. Helmut?
Enthusiastically second that nomination.
Any further nominations? If not, I'll take a motion to close nominations by Mr. DeCourcy, seconded by Mrs. Morgan.
Yes, second.
On a motion by Mr. DeCourcy, seconded by Mr. Morgan to close nominations, Attorney Cunningham.
Mr. DeCourcy.
Yes.
Mrs. Morgan.
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth.
Yes.
Mr. Hurd.
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan.
Yes.
5-0 vote.
And on a motion by Mr. DeCourcy, seconded by Mr. Helmuth, to elect a new vice chair, Mr. John Hurd. Any further questions and comments? If not, Attorney Cunningham.
Mr. DeCourcy.
Yes.
Mrs. Morgan.
Yes.
Mr. Helmuth.
Yes.
Mr. Hurd.
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan.
Yes.
5-0 vote.
And thank you, Mr. Hurd.
Thank you for the honor.
For agreeing to do that. Trying not to inundate you with too many calls. Beyond the normal calls I inundate you with. That now brings us to the next item on our agenda, a proclamation for Children's and Teens Grief Awareness Month for the Children Room. Mr. DeCourcy had contacted me about this. I just wanted to say very briefly, this is something that's really near and dear to my heart. Many, many years ago, back in 1997, my family suffered a terrible loss. My cousin's baby boy was kidnapped and murdered, and his two older brothers were having a tough time. They didn't live in Arlington. And I remember in 1998, end of 97, because you're in that club you really don't want to be in, we met lots of different people, Molly Bish's family and Holly Peranian's family and Adam Walsh's dad. And the other thing is we bumped into some people who were trying to start this grief counseling center for families that were, unfortunately, through different circumstances in the same position we were in. And when I first heard about it, and I'm a member of First Baptist Church here in Arlington Center, it was affiliated with something called like Dougie's Place. But there were individuals who wanted to start this thing called the Children's Room. And I remember going to my pastor, Vince Scalisi, Reverend Scalisi, talking about, this great program. And back then, I think they only had like 4 or 5 families. And I don't mean to say only, but they were looking for a home. And thankfully, we were able to house them at First Baptist Church, and they were there for many, many years until finally they were able to have their own big, brand-new home, now at the corner of Mass Ave and Appleton. And I think originally, I remember Nancy, I can't think of their names, but they were like 5, 6, 7, 8 families, and then it just took off, which is another reason why it could no longer. We missed them when they left First Baptist. We were happy to house them for 12 to 14 years. But we were also happy the seeds that those women planted grew, established roots grew, and outgrew us and went to Mass Ave and Appleton. So, sorry to go so long on that, but every time I see all the accomplishments of the Children's Room, I smile a little, because it brings me back to a really sad grief time, but it also brings me back to something that I learned back then from Dougie's Place and now the Children's Room, which is, understand the sadness, but also don't stay in it and look for the happiness that's around too. So with that, Mr. DeCourcy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to read the proclamation, and then there are several representatives from the Children's Room lesson that come up after I read the proclamation. Whereas children and teens in Arlington and across Massachusetts experience the death of a parent, sibling, caregiver, classmate, or other significant person, and grief can affect their emotional, social, and academic lives. And whereas compassionate, developmentally appropriate support from families, school, faith communities, health and mental health providers, and community organizations helps young people understand and express their grief in healthy ways. And whereas the Children's Room, founded in Arlington, together with schools and community partners, works to ensure that no child or teen has to grieve alone. And whereas the month of November is recognized as a time to raise awareness of childhood and teen bereavement and to encourage open, stigma-free conversations about loss and support, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Arlington Select Board, hereby proclaim November 2025 as Children's and Teens Grief Awareness Month in the town of Arlington, and also recognize November 20th, 2025 as Children's and Teens Grief Awareness Day in Arlington, and urges all residents, schools, organizations, and institutions to join in fostering understanding and support for grieving young people in their families.
Thank you. Is there a second to Mr. DeCourcy's?
Second.
Mr. Hurd, Mr. DeCourcy?
Yeah, I'll move approval of the proclamation, but I also want to invite the 4 representatives from the Children's Room: Jonathan Gaze, the Executive Director; Kim Kerr, the Director of Philanthropy; Zoe Laurent, I believe is a Marketing Manager; and Stephanie Franzosa. I think we're going to hear from Mr. Gay. And just thank them for all the work that they do, and just want to repeat the mission of the Children's Room. We've read the proclamation. Children's Room creates safe, supportive communities so that no child or teen family has to grieve alone, and we really appreciate the work that you do in the community. If you'd like to address the board, you can. Otherwise, sure, you can go right there.
So my name is Jonathan Gay. I'm the Executive Director of the Children's Room. I'm honored to lead this incredible organization alongside my fellow colleagues here in attendance, Kim Kerr, Stephanie Franzosa, both Arlington residents, as well as Zoe Laurente. As Select Person DeCourcy said, we are a nonprofit here in Arlington that's providing really, really important grief support services to children and teenagers ages 3.5 to 18 years old who've had the death loss of a parent, a caregiver, or a sibling. We don't wish anybody to come to services at the Children's Room, but we have this amazing location at the corner of Appleton and Mass Ave. It's a beautiful yellow Victorian home, and we're really proud to call Arlington our home base. It's such a supportive community. It's such a central location. We have families and children coming from 80 different towns and cities across eastern Massachusetts to find services at the Children's Room. We're also reaching schools and communities as far north as Lowell, as far east as Salem, Massachusetts, as far south as Foxborough, and as far west as Waltham. So that's our really big catchment zone, but all centrally located here in Arlington, Massachusetts. So this year, the Children's Room is going to work with 550 kids and teenagers who've had that direct death loss of a parent or a sibling. We'll work with an additional 300 parents and caregivers, really providing them those support services that come with having the death loss of a parent or sibling. But what's really, if you ever come to the Children's Room, what's really important is that those kids, they're going to find meaning in that loss. They're going to remember their person who died. They're going to meet other kids and teenagers who've had that same experience. And so oftentimes you hear kids when they first come say that they feel isolated and no one else really gets what happened, but once they come there, they feel more connected and people understand. So really thankful for the town of Arlington and for the Select Board for acknowledging November as Children and Teens Grief Awareness Month and for your support of our organization. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John, and thank you. My name is Kim Kerr. I'm an Arlington resident, and as you shared, the development director. And I just want to add my appreciation I've lived in Arlington for 30 years, so some say that doesn't quite count as a resident, but I think it's fair. And I started as a volunteer at the Children's Room 20 years ago, and it's an incredible mission. I became the full-time development director 10 years ago, and we've grown from, Diane, thank you for sharing your memories of us in the church basement. We've grown to a $2 million organization. We never charge a family for our services, and it's because of support in the town of Arlington. People in the Arlington, I actually met a family this morning at Cafe Nero, and she was just sharing how important it was for her two daughters who one at Brackett and one at Ottoson, and it's an incredible resource. And as John said, we serve people from all over, but we feel really fortunate to be here in Arlington and be supported. So thank you for having us today, and spreading the word is so important. That's how people learn about us, so thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hurd?
Thank you all for the work that you've done. I'll give you my quick children's room story. So I've known the children's room for about 20 years as well. And my first memories is my parents did some work for the children's room when they first got the house that it's in now. And I used to come back from Tufts, and my dad would say, "Oh, we got to go move one chair." And we'd be there for 4 hours, but I was happy to do it at the time. But, I was introduced to the program, and I never thought that I would know anybody that would actually go through. And in the 20 years since, I've probably known, 10 to 15 families that have used the children's room. And it's, for those families that have used it, it's been an incredible resource. And to have it so local and be run by talented individuals that are so enthusiastic about the work is really an incredible resource for the town of Arlington and Massachusetts in general. And for those who have had the privilege of going to the children's room breakfast that I go to once a year, you hear stories about individuals that go through the program. And what's really amazing about it is a lot of young individuals that go through the children's room come back, right? And they volunteer, and they help other children who are going through the same process that they went through when they were younger. So it's really a cyclical effect of helping, and it's really an amazing program, so thank you.
So on a motion by Mr. DeCoursey, seconded by Mr. Hurd, any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, a very unanimous vote. And I understand you all want to take a quick photo? Oh, everyone wants to just step up in front really quick?
That's why I wore my nice suit today.
We'll put the 4 representatives. Oh, did you? You want to be in it?
I can take it.
No, you probably never get it. Here. All right, the 4, yes, 4 children's room in the middle, and then all of us on the end. Turn to the side of our Okay. We'll let her take a few.
Okay, thank you.
I can get Joan Morgan saying, "I'll be glasses." So tell Joan, I heard.
You learned.
Yes.
Oh, did he? Awesome.
Thank you to everyone for allowing the little up and down back. We need the exercise. Next, we will go to, as we know, under the Town Manager Act and the bylaws, the elected treasurer went to an appointed treasurer, which is under the purview of the town manager, but the select board still has a role in that process, and that's why this appears on the agenda tonight, as my colleagues and I are aware. But what I'd like to do is turn it over to our town manager, Mr. Feeney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you noted, it's my pleasure to introduce Lynn Gallagher as the candidate to be Arlington's next treasurer-collector, pending confirmation of that appointment by the board, hopefully this evening. In brief, Lynn has been working in the treasurer's office for 3 years now. She started as a water sewer collector, then transitioned to real estate collector, before becoming our deputy treasurer and collector. So obviously, this rapid ascension is a testament to her professionalism, attention to detail, her willingness to learn, but also her dedication to her colleagues in the treasurer's office. During her tenure, she's been instrumental in onboarding new staff, navigating challenges with munis, which if you work for the town, you know there are many, but also managing our trust funds and reconciling our bank accounts. Just note that beyond her experience here, she has a very strong educational background. She has a Master of Science in Taxation, as well as a Master of Science in Business Administration, and a Municipal Finance certificate, so she has an understanding of the big picture as well. And in her role as deputy, she has already begun the necessary schooling to become certified by the Massachusetts Certified Treasurers and Collectors Association. So that is a very big step in the process, but we are very fortunate that she was willing to step up to be considered for this role. And if the chair will allow, I would like to invite Lynn to come say a few words.
Thank you very much, Jim. Children's room is kind of a,
Hold that up, too. Sorry. If you can, thank you,
is that
perfect.
better?
Thank you.
Children's room is kind of a tough act to follow, but I'm honored to be here, to be considered for the appointment of the treasurer-collector. I am a longtime Arlington resident. I have Kim beat by a few years and 30-plus. I have deep ties to the community. Been on the personal side, I've volunteered with the schools throughout my kids' education, from Brackett to Addison to the high school. I was a PTO treasurer, and I also volunteered with several nonprofits located here in Arlington. On the professional side, Jim has sort of given you an overview of some of the positions I've held. The assistant collector for water and sewer, that requires you to work very closely with the water and sewer department over in the DPW. You work with them generating the bills, getting them out to the residents, and then you're in charge of collecting all that revenue. You have to, that means talking with residents who call in, sometimes the real estate agents who are getting final water bills. I also was then the assistant collector for real estate, working extensively with the assessor's office in that role. That is getting the bills out, and you all know how important the real estate revenue is to the town. So getting that and having a very effective process to getting those bills out and collecting them. It requires you to interact with lawyers and residents and real estate agents, so all different types of people, the Registry of Deeds in Cambridge. It also requires you to, handle the tax deferral process and the tax title taking process. And moving on from that, I was the deputy treasurer collector, working with reconciling the retirement accounts with the retirement group, working on the trust funds here, reconciling those. And then last but not least, bank reconciliation, which, really sort of goes from simple to extremely complex. So I really feel like I've got a very deep and wide experience now here in the, in the treasurer's office. And I'm really looking forward to bringing all that experience and continuing to serve my community.
Thank you. Mr. Helmuth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Gallagher, for your service to the town in so many ways. Your professional qualifications speak for themselves. I didn't know until reading your material that you can even get a master's in taxation.
Yes, you
That
can.
seems really apt for the job. And your involvement in the community just speaks so well to your love for the town, and I know that will translate into the service that you give our residents as you perform these important duties. So therefore, Madam Chair, I move to approve the town manager's appointment of Lynn Gallagher as town treasurer and collector.
Thank you. Is there a second, Mr.
A
Hurd?
second, and thank you for your willingness to commit to the town of Arlington. I just pulled this up from I'm sorry you have to deal with those terrible real estate attorneys, but I'll look forward to seeing your name on a municipal lien certificate coming soon, because the last one I have says Lynn Gallagher on behalf of Julie Wayman.
Oh, yes. There was a lot, I had to read a lot on those, yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions and comments? I will say, you certainly come extremely highly recommended. Was always had some trepidation in the beginning when we were switching over. And every step that we've gone along the way, your predecessor now, our deputy town manager of finance, your employment with the town that you've outlined, as well as your education and experience, you certainly, I remember speaking to a few people in the town, I'm like, wow, she looks really great. Is she the real deal? Is she really? And you are. And so I'm very confident, and especially what we'll be going into in the years before us. So thank you for, continuing your employment with Arlington and growing with us and taking care of us. So with that, on a motion by Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mr. Hurd, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. You did a good job following the children's room. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Excellent.
And keeping in the budget, finance, et cetera, theme, we now have our end-of-year budget report from our comptroller, Ida Cody. Mr. Feeney, anything you want to?
No, just glad that we finally had the opportunity to get the fiscal year closeout on the agenda for this evening. And as you noted, it seems like we do have almost every member of the finance team here this evening, as well as the town clerk. So the department head team is well represented this evening.
Ms. Cody?
Good evening, Ida Cody, Town Controller. I'm here to present the end-of-the-year budget report for fiscal year '25, ended on 6/30/2025. This is a straightforward report tonight. In case you didn't read all 45 pages of this report, I can give you the essence, which can be summarized in one line. Free cash was certified at $22,737,640, which is a historic high and an increase of $2.1 million over last year. DOR has a long formula to calculate the free cash, but I'm going to give you the main components, which I believe are of interest to you. So the appropriation turnbacks, which is the unexpended budgets, was $2.5 million in fiscal year '25 for the general fund. Revenue surplus, we had $8.1 million. And of course, we added back whatever we left on the table last year from the free cash prior year certification, which was about $11 million. On the expense side, all the departments operated within their original appropriations. We did need 2 transfers from the reserve fund. One was for the fire department because we had to fund 4 retirement buyouts in the amount of $230,000. And also facilities needed a budget transfer to cover the electricity increase and also repair and maintenance. This was $144,000. So for a total transfer from the reserve fund of $373,000, the remaining $1.2 million close to free cash. On the articles, departments and commissions have usually 2 years to spend the original appropriation. The available balance at the end of the year was $46,000, and that did not close into the free cash. That gets carried forward into the fiscal year '26. Same with the salary reserve. We had a $1.2 million that went back to gets carried forward to the fiscal year '26. On the revenue side, I will briefly give you the highlights of actually the main drivers that led to a $8.1 million surplus. I will start with the motor vehicle excise, 127% collected, which is $1.3 million over the projection, for a total of $6.2 million. Excise tax, 136%. Collected a total of $1.5 million. This consists of meals, 147% collected, hotels, 166%, and marijuana was we had a shortfall of $93,000. We've only collected 64%, which is $166,000. We've adjusted these estimates in fiscal year '26, and we continue to revisit these estimates for fiscal year '27 as part of the long-range planning. Ambulance fees doubled 218%, which is almost $600,000 over the projection. This is due to the increased rates in the ambulance rides, and also we serviced a large number of medical calls in-house by our BLS units, by our fire department basic life support. Parking violations doubled, and we collected a total of $500,000 in parking violations. This is thanks to the treasurer, who outsourced the parking violations to a collection agency, Kelly and Ryan, which are considered the experts in municipal collections. Rentals, 142%. This is because we renewed all the leases, and this collection reflects the new terms of the leases. License and permits, thank you, ISD, a total of $2.7 million, which is $1.3 million above the projection. This is mostly from the building permits, which exceeded the projection by $857,000, and also the wire permits due to the solar panels and electric vehicle chargers. Interest, $3.5 million. Now we know why we've been contributing so much with the interest to the free cash. It's because the Arlington High School, DPW, and also we had a good chunk from the ARPA, which are all gone now, so we'll see what happens next year. On the enterprise funds, all 5 enterprise had certified healthy retained earnings, and they're all listed in the report. I'm not going to go through all of them. AYCC and Water and Sewer missed the revenue projection by a very small amount. They were at 95% and 97% respectively, but they also kept the expenditures below the budget. So in the end, they certified positive retained earnings. Recreation is thriving under the leadership of the new director. The revenue collected is 117%, and the expenditures are at 97%, which led to increased retained earnings. And per your request, you have some other major funds balances listed in the report. And I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Mr. Hurd.
Move receipt. And so, I mean, I feel like this is a topic every time we have one of these reports, but so marijuana just continues to decline in total revenues, right? Because we keep adjusting it down, and it always goes lower than our lower adjustment. It's an interesting, concept, given where we thought that would be, 5 years ago. And as, we just went through a process with a third company that's looking to open up a shop. And, I mean, if they think they can do well, they think they can do well, but it just seems to be kind of fading. It's always a grim outlook for revenues in that industry. It's interesting. And then I did note the parking. I thought it was because of the buttons. So I'll attribute it to the new service, but the old meters had the 15-minute button right on the meter. Now we make people go through a whole process to get their free 15 minutes. I would attribute that a little bit to the increase in parking. But hey, it's revenue. What are you gonna do? Even if it's from me.
Mr. Helmuth.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to follow up just to clarify on the parking revenues. This is probably, Madam Chair, a question for the town manager in his discretion. Do I understand correctly that the doubling of, the 200% return or the exceeding of that came on collections versus actual enforcement? Like, did we also see a 201% increase in tickets, or is this just on collections?
Mr. Feeney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Helmuth, I don't have for you a direct answer on if we saw more enforcement. My gut tells me we did not actually see enforcement because there was a few times where we did not have the PCO position filled. So this is more so on a new collection procedure and following through to ensure we collect on the violations that were issued. And we do now take all the steps necessary to, if someone doesn't pay their parking violations, to mark them at the registry to ensure that if their perhaps license comes up for renewal, they will be stalled in that process until they come to town hall to pay their parking violations. So part of that too could be you're seeing collections from prior year parking tickets that had gone unpaid, but now we have a better process of collecting in current.
Good, that makes sense. I do really appreciate that. I mean, the revenue is useful and important, but I also think as a matter of public policy, the purpose of parking meters isn't just for the money. In fact, it's not even principally for the money, but it's a management of a public limited resource, which is street parking. So it's more effective if people know that they're going to need to pay their fines because they might be more inclined to vacate that meter after 2 hours or do that. So, and that frees up the meter. It helps local businesses a great deal when we have effective enforcement. So I think for those reasons, I do appreciate it. And as Mr. Hurd said, the revenue is nice too. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is that a second?
It sure is.
Thank you, Mr. Helmuth.
One of these days, I'll remember to do that first.
Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Cody, for the report. We look forward to every quarterly report, but the year-end really gives us context as to how we've done, and particularly with free cash position, as you said, and it did set a record. I also want to thank you for interesting, a little bit of detail on the licenses and permits, and we talk about encouraging clean energy, and you've pointed out in the report here that the number of solar panel permits rose from 25 to 173 between fiscal years 24 and 25, so certainly consistent with a lot of our goals. I do have a question for you on the Medicaid reimbursements that you said that are off, and there was a hope that the schools would be negotiating either with the new vendor or looking for those reimbursements. Is there any, it's the money that hasn't been collected, are we in danger of not getting that, or is this just a timing issue that once the new vendor's here, we should be able to capture or to maybe get back to the goal?
Ms. Cody?
So we believe this is a timing issue.
Okay.
And because we're in the process of changing the vendor, or we don't know if we're going to keep the current vendor, but we hope that this is just a timing issue because the vendor comes from outside, collects all the data, and they have to filter it and report it the way the federal government needs it reported. So we're hoping, we've seen in the past that it was a timing issue. We had years when we collected double than the projection, and then we're behind. So at this point, we're hoping it's just a timing issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeCoursey. And to piggyback on that, I was going to say, this one's been on for the year, the Medicaid reimbursement, and I had hoped it would have been resolved by now, but does anyone, either Ms. Cody or the town manager, can sort of give a approximate date that perhaps by the first year report of next year, that this hopefully should be negotiated with the outside vendor and everything should go back to the way it was in terms of collections? Mr. Feeney?
Sure, Madam Chair, I think what I could say is we certainly have this on the top of the list to review with the new school CFO when he starts, which I believe is this week. This is one of those orders of business that we had been working with the outgoing CFO on, and we certainly have it there at the top of the pile to continue that discussion.
Whatever you can do to, I don't know if you have anything to add, but to speed, just to speed that along, because I know, I don't want to minimize it and be sarcastic, but to say we shouldn't keep seeing this. I don't like to say it is what it is, but we shouldn't really keep seeing this, especially where later on in the agenda, we'll be discussing an override and being able to go to the voters in terms of, scratching every corner. Did you want to add anything?
Well, I hope I'll come back with good news next time, either the money or some sort of resolution.
Okay. If you want to use me, you can. You can say, who was being a you-know-what, so let's not give her a chance to talk about this again. And in that vein, I was just wondering if we could, if it's not too cumbersome, but I know Munis, so it shouldn't be. When we list our fees going forward, if we could also include in there, because one of the things when I talk to people out in the street, in the coffee shops, in the playgrounds, et cetera, is when they ask about, what is the town doing, in terms of producing revenues, things like that. I always highlight, well, both our police and fire department also produce revenues. And we have most of them captured here, with the exception of, if there's any way we could put the figure, I think it's, the manager can correct me, on details booked with the Arlington Police Department by our utility companies, not details that the Arlington Police Department puts in place through overtime and the other Arlington-related. But outside of that, we receive 10 to 15, is it 10 or 15%, Mr. Feeney?
The administrative fee, is it 15%?
If you're talking about the administrative fee is here, it's in this report.
It is, okay, but what I'm
Yes.
saying is if we could put that in that little paragraph moving forward, where we talk about how much we get from ambulance fees,
Yeah,
if we could put whatever revenues we get generated, I know we have in there revenues in terms of parking fees and the like. I'd also like to put that in there, because it just, to me, when I tell people that, when they say, what am I getting from my bang for my buck? But then I talk about, that the town is doing everything it can, when appropriate, to gather some revenue. Public safety comes first, but there also is, they're not totally a drain on the budget. There is some revenue producing there. Did you want to add something?
I was just going to say, your point is well made. That does collapse as a local receipt with a number of other items into that category, but it's certainly something we could detail in the narrative in the future to be able to track that over time.
Because then when I throw it out there, I'll actually have a number. And then I'm assuming with the turnback of 2.5 million, that's totally from the town side.
It is about, yes, $11,000 turned back from the school, and the rest is from the town.
Okay. That's maybe a long-range planning discussion moving forward. And then I think that's all I have. So on a motion by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. Helmuth, any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. Thank you, Ms. Cody. We now go to discussion and vote, senior citizens means tested property tax exemption amount from our Board of Assessors, and we have the chairperson of our Board of Assessors, Ms. Winstanley.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, Mr. Town Manager. With me tonight are the other members of the board, Gordon Jameson and William Zagata, and of course our director is here, Dana Mann. But before Mr. Mann talks to you about the senior means tested exemption options for 2026, I wanted to remind the board and people watching at home that with respect to seniors, they also have the option of deferring their taxes. Under General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, if you are 65 and you have income of less than $109,000, you have the ability to defer your real estate taxes in total or in part up to 50% of the fair cash value of your home. And there's no asset requirement. It's only determined by income. So $109,000 is a sizable amount of income. That's all income, Social Security, any income of any type. Many of our seniors don't take advantage of that. What happens is if you defer your taxes, they are due when the house is sold or you pass away. If you have a surviving spouse and they're over 65 and fall into the same category, they can continue to defer their taxes. So seniors may want to think about that's an option. So the board understands that's an option available to seniors as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mann here. Dana, sit here, and I'll go in the back.
Can I
Thank you.
just ask one question on that?
Sure.
When a senior does apply for that, do they have to come back and apply every year, or is it just one time?
I believe.
Yeah, I can
Answer
feel
that.
that. It does require thank you, Dana Mann, Director of Assessments. Application for the deferral does require a yearly application. It's a streamlined process, but the state does require the annual application.
And just one other question on that, just because I'm thinking of the population that we all speak to. When they apply, do they have to initially and/or carrying forward, come apply in person down here at Town Hall to a meeting? Can they do it remotely through Zoom, or can they do it over the phone?
They can't do it over the phone. It does require a signature on the application, but it can be emailed. We'll accept the electronic form. It can be done remotely.
Okay, thank you.
So good evening. Thank you for your time this evening. It's much appreciated. I have some more numbers for you if you haven't had enough. Today we'll be establishing an amount of award for the qualified senior means-tested exemption applicants. This year, we had 35 applicants. 29 of the applicants were granted. 3 applicants' total tax did not exceed 10% of their income, as is required. 2 applicants exceeded the asset limits, as required, and 1 exceeded the income limit, so their income was above what the limit is. So tonight, if you don't mind, we'll go through this slide presentation, and I'm happy to say that all 5 of the options this year are available to select. None of them exceed our maximum levy, which occurred last year. So if we can go to page 1. Sorry, Becca. What we have here is the exemption percentage followed by the total exempted amount at each percentage. The average exemption, that would be each individual applicant's average exemption amount. The exempted assessment, so the way that we determine these numbers is by working backwards from assessment and the exempted amount of assessed value. We also have how that produces different residential assessment totals for the residential class. The excess levy capacity is a result of, or the difference between the maximum levy allowable and the amount to be raised, which is simply the total value of the residential class, or in this case, all classes, and the amount and the interest rate, tax rate, excuse me. Any questions on that slide before I move on? So what we're doing is examining what happens with each of these, what happens to the tax rate with each of these options. So here we have an image of the report that's produced in the DOR gateway system. This is the system that produces the tax rate, given all of the different inputs. So we can see the tax rate in column E, and in this case, the 50% option, the tax rate is the same, 1067 for all classes. And then each slide is essentially the same, but with different percentages. If we move to the next slide. Again, the tax rate is the same for each class, 1067. And we don't see a change in that. The 100% option also provides for the same tax rate. What's changing here is actually on the first page, the excess levy capacity is changing. And we can see that from that first page. Now, when we get to the 150% mark, we see a change in the tax rate. The residential class now becomes $10.68, and leaving the CIP, or commercial, industrial, and personal property tax rates at $10.67. And again, that's the same in the 200% option. So now, if we can just back up to the first slide. The excess levy capacity becomes the difference maker. In the first 50 to 100%, we see the excess levy capacity moves inversely to the amount of exempted property. And that's where the funding for this exemption is determined, or is affecting the tax rate. Any questions so far? So to move to the last page, I just want to make you aware of some unintended results unique to this exemption. I give an example here of one particular applicant that demonstrates that as you increase the amount of the award, it can have a negative effect by reducing their total taxation in the following year. And that, at some point, will make the applicant disqualified for both the state program, the income tax credit that this exemption is based on, as well as the town exemption, creating a negative effect for the applicant. So these numbers bear that out. We can see that at the 150% mark, this example applicant would lose their qualification in the following year. I also want to point out that we still expect the numbers for this exemption to increase, the applicant pool. The latest number that we have from the state is from 2022, not to say that the state is behind in any way, but there were 783 applicants for the income tax exemption in the town of Arlington. So there still exists a large pool of applicants that we hope to inform of this program, and would like to see applications increase here. So, and what that means is that we strive for keeping the award in a similar amount. A consistent award is best in this application. So with that, I'll suggest that, or I'll ask for a vote to determine the award percentage for these applicants.
Mr. Hurd?
What's the current amount that we voted for last year?
50% was the selection last year.
There's a lot to cut through.
I guess my question would be, because I've heard it a few times, in terms of how we educate seniors that this is an option that's available. Obviously, I'm not doing a very good job myself individually, but I was just wondering if you or our colleagues on the Board of Assessors have any possible suggestions, whether it's a Envision Arlington questionnaire that goes out, that there's a question that you all deem appropriate in the sense of, are you aware of this? And would you or your neighbor benefit from it? Or, I mean, I'm assuming that information is available at the senior center, at the community center, but that's a different thing. But that, obviously, we need to find other ways to get it out. And I know, I'm sure you all have been discussing this, but have you had any sort of other thoughts on that?
Yes, so we work with the senior center to provide this information throughout the year. But we're also looking at other options for education, and that is an issue that we're working on.
Okay, and I guess I would ask the town manager and to you, along with the deputy town manager of finance, along, I guess, with town council, if there's anything that's allowed legally that we can do. I know whatever we mail at home, has a limit in terms of postage and what drives us up into the next category, but we also have legal, I don't want to say restrictions, guidelines in terms of what actually can go out. And I'm not saying that's the answer, but along with our colleagues and Mr. Mann on the Board of Assessors, if we could find some other way to can we put information on this on Meals on Wheels during a dedicated week or weeks? Can we put it in something that's a mailing that's, I don't know if we can take it to the point that we use GIS or demographic information, that it just goes to anyone that we've highlighted are 65 or 62 and older, but as well as Mr. Feeney.
I would just say, thank you for those thoughts. This is something we've begun engaging with the Council on Aging on, to use their various communication streams to reach what would be the intended and targeted audience for this application. But we've also discussed, how do we get in touch with some of the local tax preparers too, who are oftentimes undertaking these measures on behalf of our residents to ensure that they're all fully aware of the various opportunities for tax relief through the assessor's office.
And I have had brief conversations too now with the chair, Ms. Winstanley, about the need to, that this is an option that has been available, and we just need to, especially in this discussion we're going to have later on in the agenda. So if the town manager, deputy town manager, or our colleagues on the Board of Assessors, as we embark on override discussions, if whatever guidance you can give us in terms of if that's part of the message, what the message should be and how we should include it, that would be appreciated. So, was there a motion, Mr. Hurd, or was there a motion?
But, I mean, I don't know if there's more discussion.
I
I'll
have a
let
couple
defer
of
to Mr.
questions.
Mr. DeCoursey, yes.
And appreciate the presentation, Mr. Mann. As I sit here, and we talked about this a lot last year, I mean, as everybody in the room who just heard the presentation, it's very complicated. And sometimes you talk about when I was in law school, like, do you have a problem with the standard or the application of the standard? And here, through no fault of your own, this is a very difficult standard to apply. And what we want to do is try to provide some relief. but we have unintended consequences, as you mentioned, because the last thing you want to do is have a senior receive the local exemption year one and lose the state circuit breaker in year two. So I think down the road, I'm hoping you, maybe even through the legislature or something, I mean, because we're getting this information, it's like, okay, what do we do with it? And my concern is, like, at what percentage are we going to run the greatest risk of having people lose a greater benefit in the future than what we're able to option now or offer now? And so I don't know if you have any comments on that, but before I ask you to comment on that, when you mentioned in your memo about the 35 applications you received, those are 35 applications, when you said this year, that's for fiscal year 26, next year that it would be, or next year's bill or the third quarter bill, or, and what's the deadline for applications?
The deadline for applications was October 5th, if I remember
Okay,
correctly.
all right, so right now we're dealing with 29 that were approved, you mentioned the 6
Yeah.
that weren't. Mr. Hurd had asked you what last year was, you were at 50%. Could you give us maybe a little guidance in terms of, okay, if we're too aggressive with the exemption, we're gonna potentially hurt some people, or if there's no risk of that, you know, maybe we consider raising the percentage. If you can give us maybe a little bit of help on that.
Sure. I think what I would say, although we're not here, we're not allowed to provide, to
I understand.
give a recommendation. But at looking at the numbers, I can tell you that we would not see any disqualifications in the applicants that we received next year by the 50% option.
Okay.
I can tell you that there would be no current applicants that would lose their disqualification, assuming the income numbers don't change
Sure.
significantly.
Okay, all right, so that's the case at 50%, and I recognize you're not making a recommendation, but did you do a similar study at 75 or 100%?
We did a study at the 150,
Okay.
which is the example that I provided here, where it's quite obvious that at that level, the applicant would be disqualified the following year by both the state and the town.
Okay, so it could be several applicants would be
Oh, yes.
disqualified. Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
we-
so I think no matter what we do, that's what, we definitely want to avoid that. Okay, and then there's a question, what happens at 75 or 100? But
Right.
I just wanted to see, help us a little bit with the decision-making here, appreciate that.
I think we were well on track for an exemption amount last year.
Okay.
I guess my question on that, from what I understand, we can set it from 50 to 200%. We know what the 50% bears out. You just told us about the 150. I'm going to ask the question of, and if it's a question I shouldn't ask, or it's a question that doesn't have an answer, I know you've done the, run the figures for the 150. If it went to 75, do you have any sense of that? Have you done that exercise? Is that something that the board should be thinking? Right now, I think we're thinking, do we stay with the 50? We can go up to 200, but it sounds like 150 to 200 isn't where we want to go. So but I'm just wondering on if my colleagues or myself are considering, is it the 50 or is it 75? Should we try to test it a little bit more? Or is that not prudent? I'm not a numbers finance
No,
person.
what I can say, two things. Any increase in the award percentage will have an increased risk of applicants possibly becoming disqualified because their income numbers would change, the amount of tax would definitely change. So any increase in the exemption decreases their paid tax amount in the following year.
Okay, so that,
If you're asking for my suggestion, I would suggest that the remaining consistent with that award amount would be appropriate.
okay. So I don't know if that helps anyone to make a motion. Mr. Hurd?
No, it helps. I do have a question. Is it, I understand, so say to some extent, this feels like trial and error. Like, we don't know the answer until we make a move on this. And is it something that if we went to 75 or 100 and all of a sudden a large amount of individuals were no longer eligible, is there something we could do the next year? Oh, let's bring it back to 50, and then they come back into the frame, or?
So this program is in place in other towns, and I've spoken with assessors who have done that, who have changed the award amount significantly, and it can cause a reduction in the number of applicants, which is not what we're looking for.
Yep.
The up and down, the boom and bust cycle reduces interest in the program and reduces, from talking with other assessors in towns who have tried that methodology.
So I guess what I'm saying is, if we go with 75%, and we find out that bumped out a few people, when this comes before us next year, can we go back to 50%, and then the people that were disqualified will qualify again? And I'm
Yes.
sorry if the question is unclear, but we both want to make sure as many people as possible can take benefit from it, but some individuals that are watching might say, hey, why don't you try to get us more money or a higher exemption? And, it's kind of a weighing of these two different aspects of the decision where, again, if we tried 75% and it didn't work, we'd say, all right, sorry you got disqualified for 1 year, but we're gonna bring it back in and allow you to do it. We're trying to get as many people as high a benefit as they could.
So yes, you can change your award amount from year
Yep.
to year. But like I said, the consistency factor is significant.
Sure.
And it would help us to attract applicants by remaining consistent and not having the boom-bust cycle in place here in Arlington.
And I don't know if, and Mr. Feen, I want to call on the town manager, but does anyone have a sense of, I know we always do our comparable communities in different things, whether it's pay scale or other things. If anyone knows what comparable communities do, they stayed at 50, they tried something else. Mr. Feen, and if you don't have an answer for that, that's fine, but any comments you might have, Mr. Feen?
What it says, this exemption is not in place in a significant number of communities. So the communities that Mr. Mann is referencing that he's been able to learn from, there's probably only a handful of them. But I can confirm they have always instructed consistency because from year to year, you can back down that percentage to hopefully capture those folks you may have disqualified, but you're backing down that percentage for everyone in the program. So those individuals who were just granted 75% and may have an expectation that they're going to receive that in the next year in trying to recapture those individuals that you've lost. You've then sort of reduced the percentage from 75 to 50, for example, for those individuals who were not disqualified. So there's, you find yourself in a situation of creating a bit of a moving target, and you probably perhaps are going to have some unhappy residents either way. And those are, I think, the difficult conversations that they've sort of advised a community who's implementing this in its first years to avoid, because they've seen instances where it's very difficult to go backwards from a higher percentage. And if you were to consider a higher percentage, you'd want to do it after the program has fully permeated your community, right? If you know you have this wide applicant pool of potential people who may qualify, you want to make sure you're reaching all of them, because if we're, we've only increased program, recipients by, maybe 6 this year, which is actually still a fairly significant percentage increase. If there's still a lot out there, it may be wise for our financial standing to wait until it's fully permeated the community to understand what the actual impact to our finances is going to be each year before choosing that higher percentage. Because as you get more applicants and you have to exempt more tax, then you have the sort of alternative effect on the amount that we can raise each year. So, sorry, that's a bit convoluted, but I just want to, second what Mr. Mann was. Everyone has sort of pushed for consistency in the first few years of your rollout before making any drastic changes.
Well, it shows you how my brain works, because now it's much clearer to me, so thank you for convolution.
If there was one other thing I could add, if it, helped with the board, I think when this matter was first proposed and then voted back in 2023, the state circuit breaker was half of the amount it is now. 2 years ago, the governor increased the circuit breaker by 100%. So that's sort of what leaves us with 50% really equating to what we had believed when this was first launched to be 100% benefit. But it all factors into someone's tax to income ratio. So I think that change 2 years ago added another layer of complexity from when this matter, as I understand it, was first brought before the board for home rule legislation and to be advanced to town meeting.
Thank you. Did that answer? Mr. DeCoursey?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Feeney, for elaborating on that, because I think the other thing here, just to close the loop, when we're talking about the concern about losing the state circuit breaker, it is a greater benefit. So it's not a situation where if we're issuing a vote 75 or 100%, you lose the state circuit breaker. It's like, oh, well, you're still going to be better off from the town you're not. And so what I'm hearing, and I'm prepared to make a motion if you like, Madam Chair, is even though you're not making a recommendation, I'm hearing strong signals for 50%. So I'm going to move 50% for this year.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that and
Mr. Hurd?
say that I agree with that. And I think with the information that we have, that is appropriate. I would say, and I appreciate the presentation, like Mr. Corsi said. I don't envy your position trying to explain a very difficult concept in a 10 to 15 minute agenda item. I would just, if we can, when this comes up next year, if we can do an analysis on the 75, I think, the information that we have is pretty clear that we don't want to go to 150%. We don't want to go to 200%. I don't think we want to go to 100% right now. But it would be helpful, I think, to just see what that one step up would look like. And then we can, if anything, to go back to residents and say, this is why we did 50% and not 75%. But again, I appreciate the presentation, and I'm happy to second the 50%.
Mr. Helmuth?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to support this. I think before the town manager's comments, I was actually tempted to ask you if we had more time to make this decision and to ask you to run that 75% analysis so that I feel like we're flying a little bit less blind on the decision. But I think I do find it persuasive the advice the state has given us to kind of steady the ship early on. I think that we're collecting data. I would like to very much support my colleague, Mr. Hurd's request that we do that analysis this time around, and that if you could come to back us with that scenario for how many people would have been affected, we'll have another year of data, and that's a really good thing. I feel better about that, honestly, before we take any kind of risk. And I just wanted to clarify something from my own understanding of this, and perhaps for the public's, that is this exemption reduce the tax collection from the town total property tax collection, or does it shift that onto other taxpayers? Shift the exempted amount into?
It does. It shifts the responsibility.
Right.
By increasing the tax rate at a certain point.
Yeah.
And a reduction in excess levy capacity.
Yeah.
If I may,
Mr. Feeney, yeah.
Madam Chair, if I could just elaborate on that. I think, the first page of that table was helpful in elucidating. So the excess levy capacity could be thought of another way as sort of like money being left on the table. So in fact, the only time the burden is shifted to other residential taxpayers in the community for funding this exemption is when you reach the 150% level. When that tax rate actually changes from 1067 to 1068 is the only time other members of the residential class would actually be, I guess, having the burden of funding that for those who are exempted tax. So at the 50% level, we're taking our excess levy capacity from roughly $96,000 to $128,000. So that just means we're simply collecting less in taxes. So it depresses our revenue overall.
A little bit, okay, thank you. My second area of questions, and I think this may be a repeat from last year, so I appreciate your indulgence, about I want to ask about the asset limit. And specifically, I appreciate in your memo that you mentioned that 2 people who applied were not eligible because their assets exceeded $250,000. Do you happen to know if they would have otherwise qualified because of income?
Yes, so in other words, they would have qualified except for the asset limit in 2 cases.
Yeah. And I wonder if you could share, insofar as you're comfortable speaking for the Board of Assessors, the rationale for leaving that asset limit at $250,000. Kind of in light of that, there have been 2 people who still had a low income and, may have done the responsible thing, which is invest in some savings for retirement. They're not really any more able to afford their taxes because their income is low, but they have that amount of thing. But, could you maybe elaborate on the rationale for not raising that?
Sure, so the asset limit, we were tasked with determining what would be outside of the bounds of the Act, which authorizes the exemption. We looked at, as our manager said, approximately, there are only 10 to 12 other towns that have this exemption. We looked at each one of them. And the 250 mark is consistent with where other towns are. However, we look at that, we discuss it each year prior to producing the application. So it is something we're monitoring. We tried to be consistent with other towns and in identifying what the exemption is meant to provide.
Understood. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that, and I respect that particular decision is the assessors to make. It just does occur to me in the light of, I think, the very correct desire to increase the number of people who are taking advantage of this, that, we had 2 people we know were turned away because of it. What we don't know is how many people never applied in the first place that they may be dropping from this, who, again, I think from my point of view, may struggle just as much to pay their tax bill because their income is low. And, if they happen to have saved $300,000 for emergencies, which isn't all that much these days when you're at retirement age, that's something you might continue to think about in future years.
Absolutely, and we'd be interested in public opinion on that.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. That is, I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? If not, on a motion by Mr. DeCoursey, seconded by Mr. Hurd, to set the amount of relief, continue it at 50% under the senior circuit breaker tax income exemption, subject to the 2 constraints outlined in the memo, with the request by Mr. Hurd for the analysis he outlined for next year, as well as any suggestions in terms of the outreach campaign. Any further questions and comments? If not, on the motion by Mr. DeCoursey, seconded by Mr. Hurd, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, unanimous vote. I feel like Sesame Street. Today's number was the number 4, sponsored to you by, thank you.
Thank you.
We will now go to the consent agenda, minutes of meetings, October 20th, 2025, executive session minutes, May 20th, 2024, request, private first class Christopher Bryan Memorial dedication on Monday, November 10th, 2025 at Windermere Ave, from our Director of Veteran Services, Philip McGovern, from our Environmental Planner and Conservation Agent, David Morgan, the naming of No Name Brook to Monotony Brook. Request special one-day beer and wine license, November 14, 15, 16, 2025 at St. Athanasius Greek Church for their fall Greek cuisine by Stephanos Boubalis, the Parish Council President. Request special one-day beer and wine license, November 13, 2025, December 4th, 2025, February 12th, 2026, March 6th, 2026, and April 9th, 2026 at the Mill Cafe for community education event by Jen Rothenberg. Mr. DeCoursey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move approval of items 5, 6, and 8 through 10. I just would like to pull out number 7 for a separate vote, and so just start with that.
Okay.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hurd. Any further questions or comments on 5, 6, 8, 9, or 10? If
I would
not,
just say, I never heard of No Name Brook, but I kind of like the mystique of No Name Brook, but I'll accept the recommendation of the Conservation Commission.
you want to say, I'll meet you nowhere at No Name Brook? Okay.
I mean, you could argue that
Like the
that
No
itself
Name
is a name.
restaurant in
right?
Boston.
But, well, perhaps Arlington's new motto could be Arlington, where every brook has a name.
Yeah.
And they did have an outreach campaign, and
They did, and I saw the signs riding my bike on the path. There was excellent community outreach. There was a QR code you could scan, you could do the survey. I think the due diligence was performed.
excellent. So on a motion by Mr. DeCoursey, seconded by Mr. Hurd, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. Consent agenda item 7, Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I felt we have approved this memorial before, but I felt like it really requires more elaboration, and Christopher Bryan deserves more elaboration for the memorial here. This is a request by Colonel McGovern, our Director of Veteran Services, to have a ceremony on November 10th to honor Christopher Bryan. And Christopher Bryan graduated from Arlington High School in 1966, and he died in combat in Vietnam the following April 16th, 1967, and he's a hero. And he, while he was still at Arlington High, wrote an essay before he graduated. I just want to read a little bit from it. And he was talking about people who made the ultimate sacrifice on Memorial Day. And he wrote, "Think of all the plans that you have for the future, and remember that these men and their loved ones also had a dream that had to be given up." And again, a year later, at 9 days after he was wounded, he died. And so I feel that this deserves more than a consent agenda item, and I wanted to recognize him again. There is we received the initial request for this. Private First Class Brian's nephew wrote the request, and I'd ask maybe Ms. Maher if she can take that from the January 27th agenda and add it to this, because the history there is so compelling, but also to suggest to people, if they're around on November 10th, he was in the Marines. November 10th is the 250th anniversary of the Marines, and so this memorial will be right across the street from the house that he grew up in. So I'd encourage people, if they are available that day, whether it's town officials, residents, to attend and honor him. And I just want to leave one last, again, from his essay in 1966, writing about the need to recognize people who made the ultimate sacrifice. He wrote, "It seems only fair that we should participate in some way to honor those who've helped us so greatly." And so I think I'm planning on being there next week, and I think this is just an example where just a young person fought for his country, and made the ultimate sacrifice less than a year of enlistment. So I'll move approval of the dedication as a separate vote.
Thank you, Mr. DeCoursey. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Helmuth?
Just a question, Madam Chair. Do we know the time of that ceremony yet?
It wasn't listed. I think he's looking to do it in the morning, but I don't
I
have
want to
Mr.
say it's
Feeney.
10 o'clock, but Ms. Mar, can you send us all an email tomorrow?
Yes.
Or Mr. Feeney, whoever, just, don't go by my 10 o'clock. I don't know why I have that in my head that way, but,
It is slated for the morning, but we'll get back to you with an exact time.
Great, thank you very much.
thank you for asking us. Okay, on a motion to move approval for the request for PFC Christopher Bryan by Mr. Corsi, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. Any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. We now go to appointments. First, we have Tree Committee, Karen Thomas Aliyah, term to expire December 31st, 2028. And I apologize if I didn't say your name correctly. If you can say it again to see how close I got it.
Karen Thomas Allier.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And if you want to just give the board, we have your materials, but anyone watching this, sort of a just brief premiere on who you are and what you'd like to bring to the tree committee.
Sure. I've been a resident of Arlington for about 20 years. I am been volunteering with the Adopt a Tree program for a few years. I've noticed that over the time, our summers are getting drier and the trees are becoming more stressed, and we're losing a lot of trees because they take more watering than we have presently allocated resources for. So the tree committee has done a fantastic job setting up a volunteer program called Adopt a Tree, working with the town Department of Public Works for that. And I'd like to help them with their efforts. I've been volunteering with the Adopt a Tree program for a few years now, and organized some volunteers this summer to help out with the Robbins Farm playground trees that were just planted in the spring. But the need is increasing as our climate is changing, and so we're just trying to get more volunteers in town to help out with the trees.
Thank you. Mr. Helmuth?
Thank you. I'd like to enthusiastically move approval, and as the Select Board's liaison to the Tree Committee, I can report that just how enthusiastic the chairs were about recommending you for membership and recognition specifically of your efforts at Robbins Farm Park. And I enjoy those trees on my daily walks very much in the neighborhood. And I also really appreciate your work in your career to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and I think that that's entirely consistent with your passion for the trees. Town's very lucky to have your efforts. Thank you.
Mr. Hurd?
I'll second. Thank you for your willingness to serve. And we say this often, but we're just amazed at the quality of candidates that we have in the town of Arlington to volunteer for local committees. You have a very, very impressive resume. Our former colleague who just left the board would have some curiosity questions about your many publications, but you've been spared that tonight, so.
In your font.
So, but again, thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you. Any further discussion, comments? If not, on a motion by Mr. Helmuth, seconded by Mr. Hurd, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. We next go to Zoning Board of Appeals, appointments of an associate member, Nicholas Rosenberg, term to expire October 31st, 2028. And I will say Christian Klein from the Zoning Board of Appeals gave you a stellar recommendation and with the utmost urgency encouraged us to hear this appointment, so.
Seems I think I'm the only one here.
So with
I
that-
can see the urgency. I shouldn't be so flattered.
But
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity and potential opportunity to serve. I've lived in Arlington for about 15 years. We're raising our 2 kids here. My son is a freshman in the high school. My daughter is still at Dallin Elementary. We moved here because we love the character of the neighborhood we're in. We love the town. And I've loved seeing the town grow and change. Even as there are challenges to that growth and encouraging more growth and making sure it's consistent with the character that exists and what the town specifies the character should be through the bylaws, and the zoning bylaw in particular. So I've been eager to find an opportunity to serve, and my wife saw the post and said, you kind of do this stuff. You know about this stuff. You should do it. In fact, I had been thinking about it for some time, and it just sort of happened, it popped up, and it seemed like a great opportunity to devote some of my time to the town, finally, in a way that I think at least I have some skills to offer. So I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney for about 22 years. I've been a commercial litigator most of that time at various firms, but I've always been really interested in land use and real estate. So it's always been a significant part of my practice. So I've handled matters that relate to zoning. I wouldn't say it's my primary practice, but it's certainly something that I love and interests me. So I think I bring an understanding of how zoning bylaws work, how they intersect with the Zoning Act, the Massachusetts Zoning Act, and what a board is supposed to look at in taking these things into consideration. And I think I would enjoy it, and hopefully I'd be a good colleague to the others on the board.
Thank you. I turn it to my colleagues. Mr. Hurd?
I'll move approval and just say, anyone that loves zoning should be on the Board of Appeals.
So I think about the transactional stuff that I'd be terrified to do a closing, but.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. DeCoursey. I do want to say thank you. Thank you to your spouse and your family. We say this many times. We have so many talented Arlington residents that with the expertise you have, we couldn't afford you. Thanking you in advance for that. And I can just tell by your conversational and your demeanor before us, you will be a great addition as an associate member and/or a full member if you are in attendance and that's needed, or whatever happens in the future. And we are at the tail end of the Mugar property, but we do have at least one, if not two, that I can think of, large residential developments coming up where your expertise, as well as your really cool demeanor, will come in and represent us in good stead. So I do appreciate that. And I appreciate, please thank your family on behalf of all of us for the time you'll be spending away from them, helping us here in Arlington. Any further questions and comments? If not, on a motion by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. DeCoursey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, unanimous vote. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
We now go to an appointment for the Arlington Youth Consultation Center Advisory Board. Lauren Schiffer, term to expire June 30th, 2028.
Hello.
Thanks for listening to all the numbers stuff.
That's okay, it's great.
You can say your name again and again.
My name is Lauren Schiffer. I'm a resident. I've been a resident in Arlington since 2020. I have been a clinical social worker for 20 years. I have a master's in social work and public health from Boston University. I've worked with children and teens in Boston, Cambridge, with young adults at Northeastern. I have a private practice here in town, so I have a child who's, I live in the town, I have a child who's in school in the 5th grade at Bishop, and my office is in town as well, so I'm here all the time. I'm looking forward to being more involved in the community. We moved here in January of 2020, so you can imagine that then we met no one and didn't get a chance to really integrate into the community because of COVID. But I'm eager to be able to do something, volunteer, to use my professional experience in a way that can give back to the community. In my private practice, I am familiar with not only running the business of a mental health practice, but also billing insurance and securing other areas of funding. So I'm hoping that I can help the Youth and Counseling Center with my clinical expertise and my own experiences in town. I'm hoping that we can also find a way to increase the development of the counseling center so we can serve more children, and that's the biggest concern. We've also talked about some projects in terms of increasing relationships with other clinicians in the neighborhood like myself who also work with children in a way that we can expand volunteer and support from the community. I also wanted to get involved. It's when we moved here in 2020, a year after that, my husband was diagnosed with colon cancer. He's doing well. But we were able to get money from the Sanborn Foundation. If you're not familiar with the Sanborn Foundation, I'm sure you are. They provide financial services for any cancer treatment that's not covered by insurance. And that not having to worry about something like the finances when you're dealing with parenting, as well as dealing with cancer treatment, was really wonderful. So I wanted to find a way to give back to the community, but I thought it would be better by using my professional skills with something like the counseling center. So that's why I'm interested.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will move approval. And Shifra, thank you for your willingness to serve on this board and your impressive background, beginning with your dual degree from being a social worker in the School of Public Health. And I'm happy to hear that your husband is doing well.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hurd. Mr. Helmuth.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning the Sanborn Foundation. It is not exactly a secret, but it needs, it needs a lot more. It's almost a secret, and it is one of the really wonderful things about Arlington that, anybody can take advantage of. I'm glad that you're able to. I'm glad your husband's better, and I'm very glad that you're willing to help. I was reminded, I was able to attend the ribbon cutting for the new facility at the counseling center a couple weeks ago. I was reminded just what a wonderful space it is, and I know that you will bring, with your impressive background and experience, a lot of wisdom to help guide that really critical enterprise, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to joining them at a time of growth like this.
Yeah, thank you for stepping up.
Further questions or comments on the motion to approve by Mr. DeCoursey, seconded by Mr. Hurd? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous vote.
Thank you.
So nice to meet you. We now have an appointment to the Human Rights Commission. Professor Beatrice Mance, term to expire October 31st, 2027. If you could say your name correctly for the record, hopefully.
You got it correctly.
Oh, good.
Beatrice Mans for the Human Rights Commission. I applied for this position because I care about human rights and the equality of all people, and because I feel we're entering a time when that's going to be more and more threatened in this country. And I think I can offer a rather broad vision of the number of different prejudices there are in the world, and the difference between politics and identity. The importance of not confusing the two. I have spent my life teaching the history of the Middle East and Inner Asia, and to some extent of Eurasia altogether. I've lived abroad quite a great deal, from my childhood, second grade in France, a year in Vienna after school, time in the Soviet Union, about a total of about a year between Russia, Leningrad, and Central Asia. Spent about probably a total of a year or so in Iran, and time also in South Asia and various other places. So much of Eurasia. I have been therefore in a position to understand how much anti-Muslim prejudice there is in this country, and I think that is one of my goals, to see that recognized. I think it's a little like anti-Semitism back in my youth or before, where it was so standard it wasn't seen. But I care also deeply about other forms of prejudice. I've given my profession and my travels, I have friends on both sides of any number of divides, Turkish, Armenian, Israeli, Palestinian, India, Pakistan, and have really come to understand how dangerous that is. So my goal in this, my hope is that I can bring this experience to bear in Arlington, and I think it's time in my life to get my hands dirty a little bit and to see what happens on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn it to my colleagues. Mr. Hurd.
Happy to move approval and certainly reiterate what we said earlier about the incredible quality of applicants that we get for these positions. And I think you're very well qualified to lend a voice to a very important committee that we rely on. And as a former Tufts student, it's always happened to have some Tufts alum on our local boards.
I spent many happy years teaching at Tufts. I thought it was a wonderful place to teach.
Mr. Helmuth? sorry.
Might as well. I'll second that. Thank you, Dr. Bunce, for being willing to serve. And I really appreciate something you said in your remarks, which is having friends on different sides of various divides, because we are a very divided country, and even some of those divisions are trickling down locally. And I appreciate the spirit of what I think I'm hearing, which is that you really want to foster a mutual understanding while certainly standing up for discrimination and oppression when we see it. But I know that you'll take that to heart in your work here in the community, and I look forward to seeing what you do.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? If not, on a motion by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. Helmuth, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
And another appointment to our Human Rights Commission, Lauren Walczyk, term to expire October 31st, 2026. Is she here by Zoom or,
Mrs. Mahan, thank you. I received an email from her that she is ill tonight. She was going to appear in person, and if she was feeling up to it, she was going to try and Zoom in. I did see her earlier in the meeting. I'm wondering if she fell off not feeling well. Obviously, it's up to the board to move forward with her appointment, or we could have her come back.
what's the board's pleasure? Mr. DeCoursey?
Madam Chair, I mean, maybe if she comes back to the meeting, we could revisit it, but where this is a first appointment. If not, I would move to table to a future meeting.
Great, thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Barring her reentry, and you'll let us know on a motion by Mr. DeCoursey. Any further questions or comments? Seconded by, Mr. Hurd?
So if we, just procedurally, if we vote to table it, does it go to another meeting, or if she comes on, can we?
We take another vote
Revote.
and remove it from the table. Attorney Cunningham?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, if it's tabled now by the board and the applicant came forward later in the meeting, the board could take it off the table and take it up tonight if they wanted to.
Thank you for reminding us. Okay, and a motion by Mr. DeCoursey, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, unanimous vote. We now go to agenda item 15. For approval of food vendor license, My Brother's Place Pizza and Roast Beef at 181 Broadway, Meninder Car. If you could, I apologize for maybe not saying your name correctly. Please have a seat. If you could just say you can say your name correctly and tell us about your proposal for My Brother's Place Pizza and Roast Beef.
My name is actually Harkirat Singh.
Oh, okay.
Marinder Kaur is my wife's name. She's watching the kids, so I'm here. I'm in this business for last 25 years. That's all I know how to do. Cook good food and feed and keep our customers happy. And I strongly believe in fresh and quality product. And we own 5 other restaurants. Now we get a chance to serve Arlington, and I'm pretty sure we'll make
Yes, and then
progress there.
Yes, we did notice that you do have other similar businesses, which is a good thing. And we also know in the restaurant business, it's very difficult.
It is, ma'am.
It's usually a family endeavor. And a lot of times your workers become your work family because they're just as committed. And I do appreciate that you and/or on behalf of your wife have submitted, all of the necessary tasks, cleaning tasks, and it seems you are and will be aware of neighbors around you in terms of deliveries,
Yes.
trash pickup. But you know that because you've done it before, and you've been a good neighbor before. So I will turn to my colleagues. Mr. Hurd?
I'll move approval, and welcome to Arlington.
Thank you.
My Brother's Place is a longtime beloved pizza restaurant in Arlington. I think it's probably Arlington House of Pizza is probably the only remaining pizza restaurant that is older than my brother's place, so it certainly has a place in the community. So I look forward to
Thank you.
your spin on the food and continuing the tradition.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Helmut?
Second on the question, so this is a continuation, so this is not a transfer of ownership, it's just a, what's the nature of the license?
It's a new license.
New license, but it's an existing business,
Correct.
Yeah.
New ownership.
new ownership, okay, got you. Thank you, and should we make that subject to conditions, just noting the fire department note there on the fire suppression system reinspection?
Yes, so moved.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? If not, on a motion to approve, subject to all conditions contained therein by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, unanimous votes. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now go to citizens' open forum. If you are watching us hybrid through Zoom, now it would be, and you would like to speak under citizens' open forum, please use the yellow raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen. Except in unusual circumstances, any matter presented for consideration, the board shall neither be acted upon nor a decision made the night of the presentation in accordance with the policy under which the open forum was established. It should be noted that there is a 3-minute time limit to present a concern or request. Is there anyone here in the chambers for open forum? Ms. Marr, is there anyone on Zoom?
Seeing no hands raised.
Seeing no hands raised, open forum will be closed. We now will go to traffic rules and orders, other business, discussion and vote. And we have our town clerk, Ms. Julie Brazil, also here joining us. Discussion and vote, date for the 2026 annual town election. Attorney Cunningham?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the board's annual exercise of setting the date for the 2026 annual town election. Pursuant to the town bylaw, it is to be the first Saturday in April, unless the board deems that another date would better serve the public, and the specific language is in the memo that's available to the public as well. So if the board takes a vote prior to February 1st of 2026, we're well in advance of that it wants to set the annual town election on a date other than April 4th, it may do so now. I did note in the memorandum that there are a couple of potential issues with April 4th, specifically that does occur during Passover. It also is the weekend of Easter for most Catholics and Protestants. The following weekend is Orthodox Christian Easter as well. So just put those issues before the board. I just note that the board has discretion and flexibility to move the date as it sees fit to serve the general interests of the town.
Turn it to my colleagues. I think I can probably sense that we're in agreement that it will not be Saturday, April 4th or Saturday, April 11th, which now probably pushes us to a previous week unless my colleagues have another suggestion. So that would be March 28th of 2026, if anyone would like to. Mr. DeCoursey?
Yeah, so moved for March 28th, 2026.
For the local election, is there a second?
Second, I was going to suggest like February 15th if you wanted to shorten the campaign season.
November 17th, no, we have to be careful. Any further questions or comments? If not, and if the town clerk, we also, actually, could I ask the town clerk to come up right before we take that vote? One of the other reasons is because we're also going to take a vote for the override election. We did receive a request from our town clerk. If you could just briefly remind us of that.
Yes, since I think the easiest way to communicate about our local elections is in the town census mailing, which I have to prepare by the first week of December. It helps if I know the dates. That way I can publish in the mailing specific dates for any elections. In the spring, the state dates in September and November have been set. They aren't always, but this year there was a great effort to pin all the dates down. And that way, the census mailing can contain an application that lets people request to mail ballots. So it's just simpler. If the board isn't ready to pick a date, in the next few weeks, that's fine, I can work around it. I just, for the purposes of communication, it's easier to have a concrete date.
Thank you. So on a motion by Mr. DeCoursey, seconded by Mr. Hurd, to set the date for the 2026 annual town election for Saturday, March 28th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous vote. We now go to discussion and vote, date for the 2026 override election. Attorney Cunningham?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Related but different matter, this is the setting of a date for an override election. Just want to stress to the board that this is not a vote on the language of an override. This is simply the setting of a date. That is different from some other practice in the past when the board has taken up potential override issues. The statutory authority that the board is acting under is Chapter 59, Section 21CI, under which the board can set the override election for the same date as the annual election. It can choose a different date. It just has to provide the public with at least 35 days' notice in advance of putting an election or override election on the ballot. So those are the parameters. There's draft language in a memorandum that's been provided to the board. It is also available to the public. There are two scenarios in the draft language in the memo. There's one draft motion if the board chooses to place it on the date of the annual town election, which is now March 28th, or a different date if it so chooses. The memo also talks about potential dates that were discussed in a public meeting at the Long Range Planning Committee. Those are included in the memo. Some of them talked about March 28th because that was understood to be a potential date for the annual town election, but then also some dates going as far into early June, which, looking back at the town's history, that's been done in the past, 2011, 2019. Those override votes did take place in June, but the board has wide discretion to do what it wants to do in terms of setting a date. If it wants to consolidate it, can do that. Choosing a different date also permitted. Options are the board's.
Thank you. Mr. DeCoursey or Mrs. Morgan can correct Mr. Feeney, my memory, that initially at the Long Range Planning Committee, the superintendent and some members of the school committee had suggested the June 9th date. And then at our last meeting, there was discussion around a need for an earlier date regarding staffing issues, contractual obligations of June 15th, but also in terms of what a date would do in terms of concerns that the school committee and superintendent had, that the further out the June date, some people may see some handwriting on the wall that may be correct or not correct, and we could lose people that we necessarily don't have to. If a decision was made earlier than June, so they came back with their order of preference of March 28th for the override, the same date as the local election. They then said their second preference would be the April 14th, which is a Tuesday, and then their third preference was early May. Now, as town council has outlined, it's up to this board. Those are just suggestions. If any other date seems amenable and we get near our total unanimity, then that will be the date. But that's all we're setting here tonight. So with that, I will turn it to my colleagues for discussion on possibilities. Mr. Helmuth and then Mr. Hurd.
Oh, I think before I started, I see the town manager had his.
Oh, Mr.
Madam Chair, if I
Feeney.
could just offer one bit of clarification regarding the discussions at the Long Range Planning Committee meeting. The preference for an April 14th election date was only if it was going to be co-located or co-held with the town election. So I just wanted to add that clarification.
Okay, so that's kind of out for their request. Mr. Helmuth and then Mr. Hurd.
Thank you. I look forward to the discussions tonight, and particularly for my colleagues who were present at Long Range Planning, but just a couple of questions for my framing this discussion. Just to clarify, Madam Chair, was the preference for the dates a vote or an express presence of the entire long-range complaining committee, or just people from certain departments?
The first vote that we took in September was the June 9th, and the Long Range Planning Committee unofficially, but took that vote. But then last month, it was the superintendent and Kersey, Allison Ampe, and Len Carden, and somebody named Jane Morgan was present, also said upon further reflection and speaking with the superintendent, they now wanted to pose earlier dates. So, but there was no official vote, from my memory, that the Long Range Planning Committee took. It just, the consensus was, let's go back to the board with these suggestions and see what comes of it.
And just one more, thank you, Madam Chair. And just one more question. This might be for the clerk. I appreciate understanding the convenience, and I think for the public good, of being able to announce the election in the census mailing and to request a ballot. And so we've done that with the town election. So if for some reason tonight we weren't prepared to vote the override date, but at a future board meeting, we did set the override date for the same day as the town election, would that, well, how do I frame my question? Does that still work, or do you need for us to set the override now in order to take full advantage of the convenience of the census mailing?
I just need it set before the first week of December, so there's still some time to.
Okay, so there's some time regardless. So, so do you need to be able to say that there is an election, or specify exactly what's going to be on the ballot?
I think it's helpful to be specific that the annual town election would include a ballot question on an override.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's helpful for the time frame. Okay, thank you. That's all I got for now. I want to
Okay,
weigh
and
in
so
later.
we have November 10th and December 8th. Mr. Hurd and then Mrs. Morgan?
I mean, I would just, defer to the many members that are on the long-range planning. But if I'm hearing a preference of having it on March 28th with the annual town election, then I certainly would agree with that, to the extent that it just makes it a lot easier on a lot of people to have both elections at the same time and not have two separate elections. So, I mean, if that's what I'm hearing outside of being convinced otherwise, then I think that would be certainly an appropriate date.
Mrs. Morgan?
I just wanted to speak, because we didn't cover it in its entirety, that the concerns around the cadence of the school department, right? School hiring is a very set cadence every year, right? So when there is uncertainty, which there is right now, right? And especially when the next fiscal budget isn't closed, there is presently a deficit in FY27. Staff start to sort of make their plans of how they're going to maneuver through their professional choices over the next year in sort of January, February, and hiring really gets going in March, April, May. That's when principals are here, they're looking for teachers. So teachers who are concerned, and they know the contract is very clear about how reduction in force, who would be impacted. They start to look because they're worried about the potential outcome of a failed vote that comes in June. Hopefully, the vote is successful, right? At which point, if those people have left for other districts, we then need to rehire them in June. July is a very slow time for hiring. It's very difficult to hire in July. Administrators are, people take vacations. So there's this sort of period of time in July where it's very difficult to turn around those positions. So then you're looking at the pool in August, right? At that point in time, you're starting to send out class lists, and people are starting to not know who their teacher is going to be. So the advantage of having certainty for the town in general and the schools in particular on March 29th, as opposed to June 10th, is significant in the cadence of how hiring happens on a school schedule. So I think that was sort of that was the rationale for requesting a date that was earlier, so that there would be certainty sooner for all staff. In the event, frankly, of a passage, or, I mean, hopefully it will pass, right? But in the event that it passes, then they know that it's, you know, that the budget is gonna be what it is, and if it fails, then they also have information earlier. So I just wanted to sort of clarify that piece.
Mr. DeCoursey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as a participant at the Long Range Planning Committee, that the chair reflected exactly right. In September, there was discussion about June 9th, and at that point, June 15th appeared to be a critical date for the school department. We then received a request at the following meeting because of the cadence that Mrs. Morgan just spoke about. I think as we sit here on November 3rd, it's too early to determine what the date should be for the override. I'm sympathetic to the issues raised by the school department, but one of the concerns I have right now of selecting a date is, one, while the projected deficit for fiscal '27, there still is a deficit. We don't know if that will be closed. Two, and again, it doesn't mean we have to do this in June, but we have historically done this in June, certainly after the House Ways and Means has released its budget. For the past 5 years, the House Ways and Means budget has been released between April 10th and April 16th. If we have an override in March, it's before we even know what potentially could happen with local aid. Now, we'll have the governor's budget by then, but we won't have the recommendation of the primary committee in the House. So right now, I think, and I know Ms. Brazil is concerned about the date that we announce this for the public, but I think we'd be wise to come back in early December and have a further discussion about where we are, because just remember, when we pick that date, we select the amount, one, we also make the commitments for the override period, and if we're at a point that we're trying to do that in February, it is really early in the process, and to me, one of the most important things you do as a board is you want to make sure you have as much information as possible before you ask the public to spend more on their local property taxes. And so a March date, I'll be honest, concerns me. I still want to have an open mind about it. Of course, it's subject to the vote of this board, but I think I'd like to see us come back in a month and still meet those timetables and maybe have a further discussion, see where the deficit is at that point, and see where the timeframes are. And at the end of the day, it is our discussion. We respect the input, and there was a lot of input at that meeting for an earlier date, but there was other concerns raised, and namely among the two select board members at the meeting. But I'd ask for maybe a little pause, at least until the meeting in early December, and then maybe make a decision at that time.
And I would also point out that the next long-range planning committee meeting is Friday, November 14th. So whatever we do tonight, we'll certainly share that with the long-range planning committee. So if that also plays into the conversation we're having. And I will say, speaking for myself, paraphrasing what I said at the last meeting, as well as a meeting or two before that, I had put the request out. I know the town manager started in the summer, if not sooner, but definitely in the summer, in terms of meeting with department heads, going over their budgets, coming up with an override budget, and then a no override budget as usual, as well as speaking to Mr. DeCoursey about the O'Neill formula, which quite possibly could be a third budget. And I did, at the September meeting, point out that Arlington if you look at the growth factor rates, just for special education alone, putting aside my personal feeling, having been through that, and I would love to know where that special education money went. We paid $118,000, but that's another thing. But I've asked my colleagues and the superintendent on the school side to, if the just special education budget alone, which has been built in a growth factor of 6.5%, if that just continues out every year that way, by early 32, fiscal 32, 33 at the latest, it will surpass general education as well as the town side budget, if it stays at that. And one of the things I've asked, and I also, what I asked at the last meeting was if, and what I was saying is if when we're trying to tighten our budgets and our belts, if we could, keep that in mind. Other towns are coming up with this same dilemma. Brookline, most recently, and I forwarded that article to everyone on that. They've also have seen that if their numbers in that particular, and I just picked that one category because it was so obvious too. And I certainly want any monies to go to a child with an IEP and special education plan to be paid for, but to keep it at that 6.5 all the way out and not maybe try to pull it back, and always with the caveat, if something happened that a budget need to be amended, it could, as well as asking about, other growth factors, if we could look at those, or a hiring freeze. And what my memory is of what I was told by Mrs. Morgan was not at the table and didn't say this, but Ms. Allison Ampe, and I don't know if it's doctor, I'm not being sarcastic, I can't remember. I don't have the pronouns in front of me. And Mr. Carden had said, because I've been looking for that commitment from the superintendent, they said, well, first we need to know what the vote is, and of course the superintendent will rise to that occasion. So I've been frustrated that, that's been my frustration. So, and that's an ongoing discussion. And I do, always look over to the manager and Mr. DeCoursey for when I go a little bit too far. So I don't want you to think I'm just going crazy at these meetings. I try to wait to the very end, say my thing, and then Mr. DeCoursey has a signal, and I listen to his signal.
Stop.
But anyway, so Mr. Helmuth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm open to a late March date. I'm not ready to vote for that tonight. I appreciate Mr. DeCoursey's cautions about that. I think that I would benefit. Part of this is because I haven't had the benefit of being involved in long-range planning as you and Mr. DeCoursey have. So this is newer to me, but I think, and I have done some homework on this, talked to various other school committee members this weekend, in fact. And I am sympathetic to the rationale for it, but I also would appreciate the long-range planning committee weighing in on this one more time and then coming back in early December to do that. That'd be where I personally would be.
Does anyone want to over-paraphrase my comments? Because I know I'm a lot.
Motion to table.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
No, I mean, I think that, I don't think that we have to rush to make this decision, and I think it can be a two-parter, right? You can pick the date, and then you can, the conversation about the commitments and the formula and all of that stuff, that to me is 95% of this, to be honest. I think the date is something, right? And I do think that it will be helpful to set that date, because then the horses are going to run towards a specific date, and it's not sort of sitting out there as this sort of, well, it could be June, it could be 6 months, it could be 4 months. So I do think that getting to a date is helpful at some point. It doesn't have to be today. But that conversation about the structure and what it looks like is the meat of all of this. And I think that's what you're speaking to and you're sharing your concerns about, which I think will be part of that conversation. and at some point, you sort of set that date, and then you can work your way back in terms of making the decision of what it actually looks like. But I don't think it has to be decided today.
Have I mischaracterized anything? Oh, Mr. Feeney?
No, Madam Chair, I don't think you've mischaracterized anything. I just wanted to note, and perhaps while we have the benefit of the town clerk being present, if we were to table this matter and put it back on the agenda for our December 8th meeting, I just wondered if that would still meet the clerk's timeline for preparing the census mailing in terms of understanding the date of the election.
I will certainly try to work with the printer who coordinates all the pieces and find a way to buy us that time. And the worst thing that happens is we say there is an override, we just don't have the date in the handouts. I mean, I can find a way to communicate that. But this is the easiest channel, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think I'm hearing is to entertain a motion to postpone this to December 8th by Mr.
So moved.
DeCoursey, seconded by Mr. Helmuth, with the request that the town manager or chair of long-range planning, Mr. DeCoursey, relay back to the long-range planning committee meeting on the 14th, the board's request, if they feel so inclined, for their, if they don't want to say it's a vote, if we can get a sense of the long-range committee, a vote that way, so we can also have that on December 8th. Any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. So we'll decide that hopefully on my dad's birthday. Poor Papa. We will now go to discussion and vote opening of the warrant for the annual town meeting. Attorney Cunningham?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This agenda item is for the opening and closing of the warrant and the setting of the date for the annual town meeting. Pursuant to the town's bylaws, the warrant must be opened no later than the first week in December of this year and may not close earlier than the last Friday in January of 2026. I put those dates in a draft motion. Typically, the board has approved in the past the Friday of the last week of the first week in December. So that's December 5th of this year, 2025. And the last Friday in January falls on January 30th, 2026. So those are the dates in the draft motion, so December 5th to January 30th, and it's my favorite time of year. I love it. But then for the town meeting, that is set by bylaw for the fourth Monday in April. However, the bylaw was recently amended to allow the board the same discretion it has when setting the election, so that if the board deems that that's not convenient, there's a more convenient date for the town, it could choose a date other than April 27th. My review of an interfaith calendar did not reveal any religious conflicts. I did look to see that, but none were revealed that were evident to me. I'm not aware. The Patriots Day is the week before, so those are the things I tried to look for to see if there were any potential conflicts for the board's consideration, but I don't see any. So unless the board has some concerns, that's certainly up to the members.
I will turn to my colleagues for a motion to open the town warrant on Friday, December 5th, 2025 at 8 a.m. and to close the 2026 annual town warrant on January 30th, 2026 at 12 p.m. by
So moved.
Mr. Hurd. Is there a second? Seconded by
Me, yes.
Mrs. Morgan. Any further discussion or comment? Is that appropriate, Attorney Cunningham?
Yes, Madam Chair.
On a motion by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mrs. Morgan, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, unanimous vote. And are you saying we need to set the date for town meeting tonight, the fourth Monday in April of 2026 is?
That's the recommendation, Madam Chair, but subject to the board's discretion.
Okay, and the actual date of the fourth Monday is?
27th of April.
My screen isn't advancing, so we have before us, unless somebody has another date, if they'd like to make a motion to set first night of town meeting for the annual 2026 town meeting as Monday, April 27th, 2026 by
So move.
Mr. Hurd, is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Mr. Corsi. Any questions or comments? If not, a motion by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. Corsi. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, unanimous vote. Thank you.
Nobody wants to make
Thank you,
motions.
Madam Town Clerk. We now go to agenda item 19, and I'll still wait to see if, and Ms. Mara will let me know if Ms. Walzak has joined us, but she has not yet, which is fine. That remains tabled. Temporary location of bus stop at 190-200 Mass Ave from Vandar Development, Patrick Young. Mr. Feeney, did you want to open on this, or should I turn it to Mr. Young or someone else?
Sure, I just very briefly, thank you, Madam Chair. I know this came in sort of at the last second last week. It was brought to my attention that there had been a number of ongoing discussions in preparation for the demolition of the building located directly at the intersection of Lake and Mass Ave. And as part of those construction management discussions proceeded, it was determined that for public safety reasons that during the process of removing the old building and constructing the new building, that the builders were going to need to occupy a large portion of the sidewalk in front of that building, which means in those instances, we oftentimes push a temporary sidewalk out into the parking lane, and then that led to, right, the domino effect of having an impact to the bus stop. And while in the course of business, if we ever have to shut down a bus stop or move a bus stop for a few days, that's something we do administratively in the course of business, but this is something that would be for a fairly significant duration, likely 8 months, and I informed, town staff and the applicants that this is actually within the board's domain to take a vote on this within the public right-of-way and to understand what the options were that were considered by the applicants and what, if any, impacts there may be to on-street parking. So I would, turn it over, if we could, to the folks requesting this to hear more about their proposal.
Thank you. Is that Mr. Young or someone else?
Good evening. This is John Murphy. I'm part of the development team with Summit Real Estate Strategies, and I am here with construction manager Pat Young. Thank you for allowing us to join tonight. I'll let Pat get into some of the specifics, but essentially this is this site and building, if people aren't familiar with it, it's very tight. I mean, we're surrounded by 3 streets. The building is currently on the sidewalk, and often what's very popular in the city of Boston, which is now moving out into also very populated areas, is a construction management plan where we actually go out to a specific construction management and safety firm, and all they do is design these type of pedestrian walkways to look at all the factors, traffic flow, parking spaces, everything. And there was really no way around moving the bus stop temporarily. And the plan really is to demolition the building, get the foundation and the steel and framing, and we will actually start siding the building and doing the storefront on Mass Ave, which at that point, while we can continue working around the building, we could relocate the bus stop back, back to where it is currently. But what we have done in the meantime is work with the police department, engineering, everyone in the town, as well as the MBTA. The MBTA has been out on the site multiple times. They did kind of an analysis of the number of passengers on a daily basis, looked at the surrounding stops, and came up with 3 options. We have submitted those for review. It's been a little bit of a learning curve, I think, on all parties involved, but we're really fine and can accommodate any of the options, as we're just trying to provide the safety for the people walking along Mass Ave, and that's what we've submitted to you today. But Pat, if you would like to jump into some of the specific questions around the CMP and the detail, that would be very helpful.
Hi, thank you for the time. My name's Patrick Young. We just want to focus on having the bus possibly moved in front of the Capitol Theater temporarily for about 8 months. And we'd like to make sure we have details for any trucks coming in so that there's no issues with traffic flow, obviously, on Mass Ave. Per request, we've already had the crosswalks temporarily put in I believe, on Herbert and Lake. Ready to go over there. We're also ready to put up the signage as well. I've already been in contact with Corey, William, like John just said, and their only concern is the bus stop being moved. It seems to be pretty much the biggest issue that we're going to have in building this this new building.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murphy and Mr. Young. I will state that I'm definitely going to wait to see what my colleagues decide. I think moving it back in front of the Capitol Theater with all the work we did on the bus lane, with the current traffic conditions that are down there in the morning with the dedicated right-hand turn lane onto Lake Street. I know when I've gone down there at 7:15 to 7:45, usually I'm going to the diner for a meeting. Sometimes I'm stopped right now on Mass Ave by Orvis Road. And I'm not making that up. And that generally lasts anywhere from like an hour 15 to just under 2 hours in the morning. I don't know anything in the afternoon. I know that's the preference of, I had concerns when I heard moving back in front of the Capitol, and spoke to the town manager about that. And I would also point out that he contacted Mr. Copperthorne and others, and there is also two other alternatives. One's in front of 222 Mass Ave, which is right before the Capitol Theater, near Derby Farm, but that would involve taking 4 parking spots. And the one that I'm leaning toward, I'm not in favor of Capitol Theater, but I want to see what my colleague said. Alternative 2 would be on the far side of Egerton, right before their outdoor dining area at 162 Mass Ave, would take 2 parking spaces. And I would also ask, when we do take a vote, that it includes that the requester, Bandar Development, is responsible for all costs associated with temporary relocation and final restoration back to the original bus stop site in accordance with final designs to be approved by engineering and APD. So I guess the way I see it is we have 3 options. I'm hearing we need to move it. It's going to be for 8 months. It's a public safety concern. Hearing from the developer, move it back to in front of Capitol Theater, and then I'm hearing from our alternative 1 and alternative 2. I'll stop there. Mr. Hurd?
So I guess I'd ask to the town manager if there's any specific issues that he has from town staff. I actually, when I was looking at this, we get to disagree. That's what happens on the board. I drive down Mass Ave on right and take a right on Lake Street every day, and generally there's nobody in that right turn lane. But sometimes when there is, I think I don't love the right turn lane there because I think it creates chaos when cars are like kitty cornered trying to get into the lane, and it blocks the bike lane that goes through. Is there enough room to put the bus stop there to land a bus within the size of that right turn lane there?
Thank you, Mr. Hurd, for your question. Obviously, I don't have dimensional analysis prepared, but it would appear to be that within the confines of that right turn lane, I would estimate that there would be enough landing area for a bus.
Yeah, I mean, it's appealing to me in an area that is pretty tight on parking to, if we could do it there, we survived for a long time without the right turn lane, and it's a temporary basis. I mean, that's what jumps off at me initially, but, if town staff has concerns with it, or my colleagues think that one of the other proposed locations is better, then I'm certainly happy to support that as well. It's just, that was my first thought, even before, when I understood the concept of what was being asked of us without the specific recommendations.
Would you want to make that motion, if for
I'll-
just discussion? or-
I'll- just for
Okay, you
discussion
wait.
for now,
Okay,
yeah.
so for discussion, we have before us in front of Capitol Theater.
Just a quick question on that.
Mr.
So-
Helmuth?
So there's that, I saw the alternatives in the memo, and this is a long email chain that we have here. Is that one, the alternative 1 or 2, or is that a third? That's different. Okay, thank you. All right.
Can I just clarify?
Mrs.
So,
Morgan?
so that would remove the right turn lane entirely for the duration of the project? So then, there, like, to make a right onto Lake Street, you would, like, turn past that right turn lane, bus stop, landing plot for, okay, great, thank you.
And
Mr. Hurd?
I don't want to get into the weeds here, but I know there's, the painted bus-only lane at 16, and Mass Ave and 16, which then has like I don't always understand what if it's buses or you can take a turn there. I don't know if there's some way to do that, but I think it would probably create a little bit of chaos if we said it's a bus stop and a right turn lane, but. So, I mean, I think what I would envision is making that right turn lane the bus stop temporarily. And you would take a right out of the lane of traffic, which is not much different than a lot of other bus stops up and down Mass Ave.
Mr. Feeney?
Madam Chair, if I could, just because, as Mr. Helmuth noted, the correspondence sort of laid out 2 alternatives, one being sort of the 4 parking spaces in front of Derby Farm, and then sort of further eastbound to consider that other location. I wonder if the requesters, as they interfaced directly with MBTA, had any feedback, or if they contemplated with MBTA the possibility about locating the bus stop directly in front of Capitol Theater, and if so, if there's any feedback they're able to provide this evening.
Mr. Young or Mr. Murphy?
Actually, yeah, I'm sorry, I may have misspoke when I was saying that, because the 2 alternatives is what I was talking about when I mentioned Capitol Theater, was the 4 parking spots in front of Derby, so I do apologize. That was the original 2 alternatives that we got from the MBTA.
Okay, so we have 2 before us, the Capitol, which is I'll call it the Derby Farm area,
I
losing.
think that's why I confused it.
No, I should have been more clear, I apologize, which we would lose 4 parking spots, or the second alternative, which is Egerton Road, losing 2 parking spots.
We can also entertain that one if you'd like, though.
I mean,
In front of
Well, we'd
Derby.
have to, if we could, but we'd have to go back to MBTA, first they've weighed in on these 2, not on that. Mr. DeCoursey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, in the back and forth, I see the 2 options, but was there any discussion about doing anything on the 180 block of Mass Ave? Because we're talking about going back a block, we seem to skip a block to get onto the other side of Edgerton. I'm just wondering if that had come up at all and what the feedback was. And before you answer, I mean, one of the concerns on Edgerton is that you're too far away from the prior bus stop and too close to the subsequent one. And so just to help us, just wondering if that came up at all.
The discussions were, so they looked at all the surrounding stops. I forget how far in all directions they went, but then they pulled all their data for number of riders and then looking at the spacing of everything. And because they really have access to all this information and we don't, we're really trying to take their recommendation. And so when they looked at the flow of the public transportation, we didn't ask for specific locations. This is what they proposed to us that they thought made the most sense for us to pursue, looking at holistically stops going in, up and down.
And I think what they did was they also considered what they could offer as 2 alternatives in terms of actually doing it with the drivers, as well as what temporary construction would need to take place to make it a bus stop, not only that their drivers could pull into, but would take into ADA and other requirements as well. So, and this is from the MBTA alternative 1 and alternative 2, or all
And they
three.
did visit the site once, maybe 2 times at a couple of key times, I thought, Patrick. But they did come out and laid eyes on everything.
Yes, they did.
Sorry, Mr. Corsi.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the different alternatives. It just seems a little bit of a mystery to me why that wasn't, maybe some feedback for them where it's so close, but Mr. Hurd may have a
No,
thought on that.
I mean, I guess I don't want to propose or vote on something that the MBTA hasn't looked at. So if they haven't looked at the right turn lane, then I guess I would withdraw that as my recommendation. But just also note, and, the MBTA is looking at this from their perspective, right? Not from our perspective, which is kind of the totality of the change for 8 months. Those are very, very important parking spaces right there. And if, I can't imagine there's too many than 4 cars, more than 4 parking spaces right there. If hypothetically, there could be 1 left. I mean, when's the construction set to start?
We've been trying, we received our demo permit. We've been trying to start for about 4 to 6 weeks. But it's been this process that has been holding everything up, specifically with the bus stop.
But I do want to note that your chair was not notified of this until October 30th.
Yep.
So we've only had like 4 days.
Yeah.
We are in
It's
it.
been with the redevelopment board, and maybe we need to talk about that, move it in the future if there's anything else. But anyways,
We're in a unique position where we have 2 meetings very close to one another. I wonder if we can get either a look at the no turn, and if there's not an appetite for the no right turn lane, then maybe it's all for nothing, but it does concern me. I don't love for the reasons that Mr. DeCourcy said, I don't love the Egerton one because I think that's a little bit of a chaotic area too. And to take out those parking spaces could be, I think, detrimental. And I don't know if anyone can answer this. It's probably for the MBTA, but is an MBTA allowed to block any portion of a driveway, a bus stop? Because there actually is in the Heights, right before Drake Village, a bus stop that goes across the driveway. And maybe it's an illegal, I don't want to make speculation. But I noticed that the other day, and I was like, that's odd that the bus stop goes directly in front of this driveway. And I didn't know if there was any sort of regulation where, since the buses are there for matters, just a few seconds, that and I think that happened on Wachusett a couple of years ago with one of the bus stops and one of the houses there, but, because there are a couple of 2 parking space areas right on that little block that if in a temporary basis, that could be an option, I think would be a lot less detrimental to the business area than, I don't love either of the options that are before us right now in option 1 or 2, is my concise version of my long-winded comments.
For TLDR, as they say.
so, I'll turn to Mr. Feeney, but I'm going to assume, and either Mr. Feeney can answer it, or he can follow up when he follows up. From what I'm hearing is if we can ask the MBTA to also look at in front of the Capitol Theater. But I think ultimately, whatever we vote has to be something that the MBTA is in agreement with in terms of what their drivers can navigate and what they have to legally offer in terms of ADA and other requirements. But, Mr. Feeney, do you know, did they look at the Capitol Theater spot and just didn't provide that as an alternative? We do have a meeting next Monday, the 10th. Is that something you or Mr. Kopp, could you answer Mr. Hurd's question?
Madam Chair, I can't say definitively whether or not the MBTA contemplated all possible locations or if they only looked at parking space locations. Again, I did not communicate with them directly. I don't think really anyone from the town did, but if it's the board's direction that we would like to get direction on some of these other potential alternatives, I think that we can do so and hopefully do so in advance of the board's meeting next Monday. I do recognize time is of the essence for these developers looking to get this building down before winter conditions set in, but I do believe that we can express the urgency of the matter to the MBTA so that we can have additional information for the board's consideration. As you've alluded to, and as I, mentioned to folks when I said this is a matter that needed to go before the board, there's a lot that goes into this decision with impacts on local businesses, the people who frequent those businesses, abutters. There's a lot in terms of the circumstances to be considered, so I'd be happy to ask they weigh in on a few other considerations so that we can ensure we've fully vetted the proposal, because of course folks may ask us, okay, what was wrong with this location? And if there is something wrong with it, we should know that and be able to articulate why perhaps we didn't choose that potential alternative.
Mr.
I'd
Hurd?
just say, if we could ask the planning department or the transportation department, whoever is most appropriate in the town manager's mind, if it was determined, or just in case the MBTA comes back and they say, this doesn't work for us, this right turn lane, if it's feasible to take that lane back temporarily for parking. And I don't think you want to get too close to Lake Street because parallel parking would cause problems. But if we take 4 and you can get 2 back, like right in front of the Capitol Theater, to kind of minimize the impact, if that is a possibility, if they could just take a look at that and make a recommendation too. All right, I'm done talking on this.
No. Do you want to, I think what I'm hearing is a motion to postpone until November 10th with the request to the town manager to ask Mr. Copperthorne or whoever, Ms. Bongiorno, to ask the MBTA if in front of the Capitol Theater is a possibility, as well as, if not, if the planning department and town council could also report back on November 10th if it does have to go to the Derby Farm site and we lose 4 parking spots, if we can get 2 back in front of the Capitol. Is that correct?
Yes.
Motion to postpone to November 10th by Mr. Hurd. Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Helmuth. If I haven't confused everyone enough, any further questions or comments? If not, am I good, Mr. Feeney? Motion by Mr. Hurd, seconded by Mr. Helmuth. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I hope, I shouldn't say I hope that's okay, Mr. Young and Mr. Murphy, because that's what we just voted, but you literally, I got this request Thursday morning, and the agenda has to be set the Thursday before the Monday, so I don't want you to think that, this board certainly doesn't want to delay you, and we're cognizant of, your development and the different crafts that you have coming in, but we will make a decision on November 10th.
Okay, no problem. That's okay. We kind of just in the middle of last week, it was the direction of where we're going to go. So it was a little bit last minute for all of us. So no problem.
Thank you. We'll make it work. With that, I'll go to, great, everybody's still here. I don't know if I stuck crazy glue on your seats or whatever. New business, Ms. Marr?
No new business, thank you.
New business, Attorney Cunningham?
No new business, thank you, Madam Chair.
Town Manager, Mr. Feeney?
No new business, thank you.
Mr. DeCoursey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly, I want to welcome back the former residents of the town who, after a 42-year absence, have moved back to Arlington today, and that's Ann and Joe DeCoursey, my parents. So moved back, and we had a successful move today, and they're frequent viewers, so hopefully they're watching this evening. Welcome back, Mom and Dad.
Tell them I'm a cheerleading coach, that's why I'm so noisy. Mrs. Morgan?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Hurd?
So I was born and they just vacated the town, essentially?
Get out of here!
Basically.
No new business.
Mr. Helmut?
No new business.
My hopefully very brief new business, which I've had Ms. Marr forward to my colleagues, the rather shocking, devastating news of the MWRA, Fred Lasky. There was a meeting with the legislators organized by Senator Jalen and Representative Rogers, who are the senator and representative for the alewife, on October 31st, along with Representative Garbely, Representative Barber, Save the Alewife Brook, Charles River Watershed Association, Mystic River Watershed Association, and a whole bunch of other people. And we had just found out that the very day before, after 2 years of me wasting my time going to all these meetings, which I thought was a waste of time, when I saw that they were coming up with plans that were $2.5 billion and just didn't make sense, MWA announced that for the Alewife, which is the only of the 3 rivers that live bacteria besides toilet bowl stuff is flushed into it. No live bacteria is flushed into Mystic or Charles River, but MWRA's decided that they are not only not going to do anything to remedy that and join in the commitment, and there were city councilors there from Somerville and Cambridge who said they were shocked, and they've taken votes to have CSO elimination or close there too by 2050, I believe. The MWRA is proposing that it downgrade the Alewife Brook and Charles River from, I believe, Class B waterway to Class B minus, which would not only allow to continue to discharge CSOs, but to allow them to discharge more because it's more cost effective. So there's been beginning extensive news coverage. It was on Channel 4/7 and I believe 25 on the news media, as well as WGBH, and then on radio. And I know various groups, including the group, I'm going to get it wrong, that hosts the Charles Regatta. I want to say it's like Charles River something Conservancy or whomever. They're all up in arms about this. Attorney Cunningham also attended the meeting just to listen. And what I had said on behalf of, everyone was so surprised because we had just heard it, they announced it the afternoon before the morning of the meeting. I said that I would keep my colleagues on the board apprised. I would certainly ask the town manager and town council, which I have, for them to start thinking about any remedy that the town could possibly take, because I know if I lived anywhere in Arlington and my toilet broke and I said, well, I'm gonna throw out pee-pee and caca out my window to get rid of it, the town would be down in a minute and say, stop that. And if they said, you have to fix it, it costs $20,000, and I said, well, here's my bank checking account, I have $4.63, I would be told, too bad, it's a public health issue. So I've asked them to look into that, as well as I know representatives, Patrick Herron from Mystic River Watershed, and she's a former city councilor in Newton, but she's the Charles River Watershed head. They're going to be, if they haven't already, be in contact with the town manager and town council for possible next steps on that. So stay tuned, everybody, but I think that I can't figure out why the MWRA came out with this, except for that they're hoping if they just throw this out there, that we'll say, okay, don't do that. You can just keep it the way it is and just don't do any more. I don't know, it makes no sense, but it really is, maybe it's falling out of fashion now, but it is a generational question and decision that we all thought MWRA and the cities of Somerville and Cambridge and our colleagues on the councils both spoke from Somerville and Cambridge saying they were shocked, and this goes against the votes they've taken. So we'll see where it goes forward. So that's my only new business, and I know we'll be meeting again on November 10th. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn by
So moved.
Mr. Hurd, seconded by
Second.
Mrs. Morgan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, unanimous vote. Thank you.